Hello, welcome to Metro Nashville Public Schools High Impact Tutoring. This is Module 2, Intermediate Literacy, for tutors in 3rd through 5th grade reading. Here's an overview of the training modules. You've already completed Module 1, Getting Started. Today I will guide you through Module 2, Intermediate Literacy. This module is specifically designed for tutors who will be working with 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade literacy. You'll finish up with modules on accelerating scholars technology and childhood protection in FERPA. Please take a moment to read through the objectives of this module. In this session, we will learn more about Metro Nashville's tutoring pilot and how it connects with building a foundation of strong early literacy. We'll learn about the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement and core knowledge language arts, and the sounds first approach to literacy instruction. We'll identify where to access the daily pacing guides and how to best plan for a successful tutoring session. First, let's take a look at how MNPS strives to build a strong foundation for reading through early and intermediate literacy tutoring. Please follow along on your screen as I read this quote out loud. We need to give more students the right opportunities because the stakes are high. Research shows that children who don't learn to read by the end of 3rd grade are likely to remain poor readers for the rest of their lives, and they're likely to fall behind in other academic areas too. People who struggle with reading are more likely to drop out of high school, to end up in the criminal justice system, and to live in poverty. But as a nation, we've come to accept a high percentage of kids not reading well. More than 60% of American 4th graders are not proficient readers, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And it's been that way since testing began in the 1990s. Emily Hanford, Hard Words. These disparities all too often affect marginalized students the most. If you are a student of color, an English language learner, or a student with learning and thinking differences, you are less likely to get the right opportunities in literacy instruction. This can cause obstacles in literacy development, which has negative effects on all other areas of academic development as well. The COVID-19 pandemic and associated school closures have caused even greater disparities in student performance. A September 1st, 2022 report on the current National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, performance highlights the dramatic effect of the pandemic on student learning. 2 decades of growth for American students in reading and math were wiped away by just 2 years of pandemic-disrupted learning, according to national test scores. The need for effective, high-impact tutoring to support early literacy growth is clear. This training module will focus on the curriculum resources and strategies that you can use to best support the students you're working with. Here's an overview of our curriculum selections for elementary literacy tutoring. While MNPS recognizes that the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement and core knowledge language arts are closely aligned, the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement, which you will hear us reference, is a curriculum designed for students specifically in pre-K through 2nd grade. It's the core curriculum that MNPS uses in our classrooms for foundational literacy skills. Because we wanted to keep the experience of early literacy students in grades 1 through 5 similar, we've selected to use core knowledge language arts in grades 3 through 5 tutoring. Core knowledge language arts is a comprehensive language arts curriculum program. While teaching skills in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, core knowledge language arts, or CKLA, also builds students' knowledge and vocabulary in literature, history, geography, and science. During the 30-minute tutoring session, Early literacy tutors will engage with students in tasks and activities that help students practice with learning letter sounds, decoding words, blending words, segmenting words, learning vocabulary, reading passages, and answering questions with evidence from the text. While each of these actions may not appear in every tutoring session, it's important that each tutor become familiar with the practices so that they can become best prepared to help students become fluent readers. Tutors should note that with each action, the good rule of practice is to lead with a sounds-first approach. Later in this module, we'll take an in-depth look at how to best guide students to effectively practice blending and segmenting the sounds. Next, we'll take an in-depth look at the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement and Core Knowledge Language Arts, so that you can familiarize yourself with the curriculum that students have been exposed to in their regular classes and how your tutoring sessions will supplement that learning. The Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement, which we'll also refer to as the TNFSCS, is the curriculum that MNPS uses for foundational literacy skills in 1st and 2nd grade. The TNFSCS Assessment and Remediation Guide, or ARG, will be used by MNPS Accelerating Scholars tutors to support learning in early literacy for 1st and 2nd grade students. The TNFSCS uses a systematic and explicit approach to sounds-first instruction to help all students gain the foundational skills necessary to become proficient readers. The supplement was developed by Tennessee district leaders, teachers, and nationally recognized literacy experts, David and Meredith Libens, to be used by Tennessee districts, teachers, parents, and higher education agencies to support students' foundational literacy skills. The Assessment and Remediation Guide, or ARG, focuses on specific skills with which students may need additional help. Accelerating Scholars High-Impact Tutoring will use materials from the ARG to support students with reading fluency and comprehension skills. The TNFSCS is unique because it focuses on early literacy using a sounds-first approach. This image shows how the TNFSCS instruction progresses from supporting students to identify environmental sounds, to segmenting sentences, to blending and segmenting syllables, to isolating specific phonemes, and finally, to blending and segmenting phonemes. Each of these steps is an important part of phonological awareness development and will be explained in greater detail later in this module. Emphasizing sounds first is an essential part of reading and phonics. On the next slide, we'll explore why an emphasis on phonemic awareness is important for our students. Phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics are three terms that will be important throughout this training module and within your early literacy tutoring sessions. Phonological awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate the spoken parts of sentences and words. Phonemic awareness is part of phonological awareness and focuses specifically on the ability to notice, think about, and work with the individual sounds, or phonemes, in spoken words. Phonics focuses on sound and letter relationships, the connection between the sounds and their written symbols. When teaching students to read, there's a temptation to jump straight into phonics instruction because we might think if we want children to read, they need to be looking at words, right? Well, not so fast. The quote on the screen by Wiley Blevins, the author of A Fresh Look at Phonics, writes that many students struggle with phonics because they don't have the prerequisite phonemic awareness skills. Research shows that approximately 20% of students lack phonemic awareness. Many of these students will fall behind their peers and/or be diagnosed with a disability. However, phonemic awareness can be taught, and it doesn't take a great deal of time to bring many students' phonemic awareness skills up to a level at which phonics instruction begins to make sense. As few as 11 to 15 hours of intensive phonemic awareness training, spread out over an appropriate time, produced results. The goal of this instruction is understanding how words work. Phonemic awareness and alphabet recognition are the two best predictors of early reading success and must be addressed for phonics instruction to work. TNFSCS takes significant strides in the curriculum to address both phonemic awareness and alphabet recognition. Why a robust phonemic awareness component from pre-K to second grade? Basic phonemic awareness is commonly done a fair amount in kindergarten, a little bit in pre-K programs, and a little bit in first grade. A number of studies have shown that this is not enough for all students, and we need to do more work in this area. The research shows that students who can do these types of activities accurately and quickly in less than 2 seconds are more likely to be proficient word readers. The research also shows this ability can be taught through simple, fun, and game-like activities while building these skills and a variety of other verbal skills for all students. The phonemic awareness component of the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement demonstrates the need to continue phonemic awareness instruction beyond first grade. And the curriculum is designed to provide this robust foundation through second grade. TNFSCS is also unique in promoting equity in literacy learning because many students need additional practice, and the lesson sets are provided within the curriculum give multiple opportunities with layered practice and reading activities. MNPS Accelerating Scholars Tutors work to engage students in both sounds first and reading activities so that students can develop a strong foundation in phonological awareness so that they can discriminate and manipulate sounds at the different levels of speech. During Accelerating Scholars tutoring sessions, tutors maximize learning time to leverage reading activities that promote the following: bridging skills to move from oral language to reading and writing, helping students understand at the largest level words within sentences, and to discriminate word parts like syllables, digging deeper into the phoneme level of onset rhyme or first consonant sounds. Here are different tasks that help students grow in phonological awareness. Task 1, clap the words in this sentence. He went to the store. Task 2, say it fast after I say it slow. Going. Task 3, what is the first sound in the word sing? Task 4, what sound is in the middle of the word dip? Notice how the tasks progress from focusing at the word level all the way to the phoneme level, or from easier to more complex and harder skills. Here are some additional practice tasks that help students develop the capacity to discriminate and manipulate sounds at different levels of speech. For example, task 1, change the C in cage to P. What word do you have now? Task 2, say blank without the ol. Phoneme manipulation tasks include substituting a sound, deleting a sound, adding a sound, and help students segment phonemes, blend phonemes, and isolate specific phonemes. The sound position in the word affects the challenge level of advanced phonemic manipulation tasks. For example, as you saw in task 1, replacing the first sound is simpler than task 2, deleting a medial sound like the ul made by the L in blank. Previous research noted that many students who struggle with slow word recognition need systematic phonics instruction. However, students also need more. They may not ever learn to recognize words effortlessly and automatically without developing advanced phonemic awareness. In other words, many students need instruction in basic as well as advanced phonemic awareness, which is what this resource component has been built to provide. The TNFSCS contains embedded instruction dedicated to supporting the acquisition of advanced phonemic awareness skills so that all students get the skills they need to become proficient readers. We continue to emphasize the importance of the sounds-first approach to early literacy development. Both the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement and Core Knowledge Language Arts emphasize this approach. Students will need to hear and recognize words in order to read and write. In a moment, we'll ask that you pause this training module video and access the supplemental training video links. There's a video on the Sounds First approach that we'd like for you to watch. While this video's intended audience says that it's K-2 teachers and leaders, we know that the Sounds First approach is effective and beneficial to any students struggling with foundational skills or decoding. Please take a moment to pause this video and watch the Sounds First approach. Again, you can access this link on the supplemental video training link. When you've watched the video, please come back to this training and resume. Now let's take 2 minutes, or however long you need. You can pause the module in just a moment to reflect on what you heard during the Sounds First video. What major lesson did you take away from this video? Why is it important to lead with letter sounds as opposed to letter names? We've learned that when working closely with early readers, we should lead with a sounds-first approach. This slide shows how phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition, and fluency all come together when leading a reading approach using sounds first. A sounds first approach acknowledges the fact that children's ability to notice and manipulate sounds is the first step in foundational skills development. This approach puts sounds first in 2 ways. Number 1, the youngest children work extensively in isolated sound practice or phonological awareness, even before beginning to identify letters. And number 2, foundational skills lessons continue to begin with sounds of words and emphasize sound patterns, even as children shift their focus to phonics and decoding, or practicing letter sound correspondences, word recognition, and fluency, along with advanced phonemic awareness. Older research indicated that students should move away from phonological awareness and focus on phonics in 1st and 2nd grade. Take a moment to view this example of a sounds first activity that your students will encounter in their core classes. Notice how the activity requires students to focus on the syllables before moving to specific phonemes, as we saw a few moments ago in the progression of phonological awareness skills. The methods that you used in the sounds first activities will also be brought over to the main activities that you're teaching your students during your tutoring sessions. An example of this can be found here. I'll give you a moment to look over it. Feel free to pause the video here as well. now that we've reviewed the sounds first approach, let's become familiar with another essential part of helping students become fluent readers. Earlier in this module, you learned that blending is one of the key skills tutors will use with students as they work to decode words and understand the texts they're reading in tutoring sessions. Accelerating Scholars tutors have an important role to support students with learning to blend words. In phonics, blending is a way for students to decode words. With blending, students fluently join together the individual sounds, or phonemes, in a word. With a word like jam, students start by sounding out each individual phoneme, j, and, then slowly blend those sounds together, j, and. Finally, they're able to read the word jam. In your supplemental video links, you can view this video shown below that gives an overview of blending as a key strategy to support the students that you're tutoring in early literacy. Another important part of building fluent readers includes segmenting words. Segmenting is a strategy that helps develop students' phonemic awareness, which is part of phonological awareness, as we learned. Segmenting and blending are the two most critical skills in the development of phonemic awareness. Segmenting involves identifying individual sounds or phonemes in a word. Students should practice segmenting initial sounds, onset rhyme, and individual sounds in a word. Segmenting tasks take place orally without the written word. Again, please go to the supplemental video training link and watch the video shown below to get a more in-depth overview about how you can use segmenting to support students in your tutoring sessions. After watching both of the videos on segmenting and blending, reflect on these questions. What resonates most with you about blending? What resonates most with you about segmenting? Think about how you'll be sure to incorporate these skills into your daily tutoring sessions as you work with students to decode words and understand the text that they're reading. As we've shared, the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement provides a lot of opportunities for students to practice. Sometimes the skills practice happens out of context, and sometimes it happens in context. When tutors work with students by engaging them with stories from the decodable reader, which we'll talk about later, you're emphasizing working with skills in context. It's important to ensure that students consistently experience both types of practice. Having multiple opportunities to engage in practice gives students greater chances at increasing their phonological and phonemic awareness and becoming proficient readers. Within your sessions, you'll see practice in context as students are reading decodable passages. You'll also see that we've incorporated practice out of context in the form of word work, where students are working with writing and spelling the words using the sounds that they've learned. Building word knowledge is essential. Having strong word awareness or knowing a lot of words is as important to being a good reader as foundational skills are. Young students are sponges for new words and learn new meanings with ease. Tutors should note that it is powerful and important to stop whenever you see a word you think your students may not know and ask them to tell you if they know it or not. Then quickly and simply define it before moving on. This should be done before or after an activity so the flow is not disrupted. That powerful practice is built into the Sounds First activities. It actively builds vocabulary along with phonemic awareness. Words that students engaged in that grade may not yet be familiar with are called out, if they can be quickly and easily explained. These words are underlined to draw teacher attention to them. Sometimes, especially with multisyllabic words used in some of the activities, the words are abstract and unusual, tricky to explain. those words were not underlined because they may take too much time to explain adequately, and children are not likely to encounter them again for years. Earlier in this module, you watched a video about the sounds first approach that referenced the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is that a reader's decoding ability, multiplied by his or her language comprehension, equals reading comprehension. Let's take a look at another view of how decoding and language comprehension impact reading ability. On the screen, you see Scarborough's reading rope. In 2001, Dr. Hollis Scarborough created the reading rope using pipe cleaners to convey how the different strands of reading are all interconnected, yet independent of one another. For many students, learning to read is a challenge. Scarborough's rope captures the complexity of learning to read. Scarborough's reading rope is made up of upper and lower strands. When all of these component parts intertwine, it results in skilled and accurate, fluent reading with strong comprehension. The lower strands include phonological awareness, decoding, alphabetic principle, letter-sound correspondences, and sight recognition. The upper strands include background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Up to this point, we've focused on decoding and phonemic awareness skills that come together to build increasingly automatic word recognition for early readers. While many of our students in 3rd through 5th grades may need continued support with decoding and word recognition, we also want to ensure that we're focusing on language comprehension by building background knowledge and vocabulary. Your tutoring sessions in intermediate literacy will focus on both word recognition and reading fluency, as well as language comprehension. These two areas will come together to ensure that our students become increasingly skilled readers, fluent in word recognition and text comprehension. Both the Tennessee Foundational Skills Curriculum Supplement and CKLA include decodable readers or reading passages as resources. When reviewing the pacing guide, you may notice that the decodable reader is incorporated into your student's workbook for 3rd through 5th grade. This slide shows an image of the 3rd grade decodable reader and its table of contents. Each reader includes multiple stories. Some tutoring sessions will include time designated for students and tutors to engage in reading a story and answering questions about the story that was read. When reading stories, it is important that tutors allow students to read while they listen. A good rule of thumb would be to display the image of the reader on the screen while the student reads out loud. Please note that students will also have hard copies of the student workbook to refer to in their classrooms. After reading each story in the student reader, students will answer questions about what they have read. As students are reading and selecting answer choices, it is important for tutors to remember to remind students that they should refer back to the text for information, especially if they are stuck or unable to answer the questions. Now that you're more familiar with the skills and some of the strategies you'll use as a tutor, let's take a look at the specific curriculum materials for 3rd through 5th grade reading. We've learned a lot about essential components to building a good foundation for early literacy. Now let's dig deeper into the materials that you'll use during your time with your students. To access the curriculum materials, let's get started by ensuring that you know which grade level you've been assigned and which day in the tutoring cycle that you'll begin tutoring. For the most part, you'll want to start on week 1, day 1. Next, you'll be able to locate the curriculum source for your grade level. Tutors can access all curriculum materials directly in Go Schoolbox by clicking on the Resource tab at the top of your menu bar. You'll then select View More for the resource you want to access, and you'll be able to open and download the resource. Curriculum resources and these training modules are available through both Go Schoolbox and the Tutor Resources page of the MNPS website. Let's review the major components that tutors will need when conducting their tutoring sessions. In the next slides, we'll explore what these resources look like and detail how you can use them to plan your literacy tutoring sessions. Your main resources for 3rd through 5th grade reading are going to be your pacing guide, your teacher guide, and your student workbook. You'll utilize the pacing guide and the teacher guides to plan your lessons, and the student workbook to refer to the students' texts and activity pages. Please note again, students will have access to a printed student workbook for their tutoring sessions. Your pacing guide contains an overview of the content of each unit that you will use for tutoring this fall, as well as hyperlinks to the additional resources you will need, your teacher guides, and the accompanying student workbook. The example below shows the 4th grade literacy Fall 2022 pacing guide. The pacing guide also contains a day-by-day calendar of which activities you should use in each session, and where in the teacher guide and student workbook you can locate those activities. Your pacing guide will contain links to the teacher guides you'll need for fall tutoring. Please note that each grade level, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, will focus on 2 CKLA units for the fall semester. In the example shown below, you will see that 4th grade is focused on CKLA Unit 2, the Middle Ages, and Unit 5, Geology. Your pacing guide will direct you to the specific pages of the teacher's guides needed for each session. Here's an example of the guidance that you'll find in your teacher guide. You'll have specific guidance on what parts of the text to emphasize and what comprehension questions to use after you finish reading. Student workbooks contain the texts that you'll be using from the decodable reader, worksheets for students to complete as part of the lesson, and targeted support stop worksheets for additional practice. There's one workbook for each semester, and every student receives a printed copy. In the early units, most directions may contain words that are not decodable based on the code knowledge that students have been taught so far. These directions are printed vertically along the margin of the page, so a family member, or you as the tutor in this case, can read them to the students. In later units, and throughout 4th and 5th grade materials, as more words become decodable, directions are written at the top of the worksheet for students to read independently. We've referenced the decodable text. Now let's take a look at how CKLA provides decodable text as a core component. Note that students will spend most of the time in tutoring sessions in the decodable texts. If students do not have the opportunity to apply the skills in the context of text, they won't gain mastery. They won't see a reason to use the phonics patterns that they've learned in isolation, and they're not as likely to remember those patterns. Take a moment to reflect. What aha moments or surprises did you experience as a result of this module? What questions do you still have about reading foundational skills or the 3rd through 5th grade curriculum materials? Here are some quick notes for successful planning for tutors of accelerating scholars. Note that tutors should set aside at least 15 minutes to plan for successful session execution prior to the start of each tutoring session. Also, you should log in 3 to 5 minutes before the start of each virtual session to be sure that you're on time when the students arrive to the session. Here are some essential things to keep in mind when wrapping up your tutoring sessions. Finish the activity of the day, or if you run out of time, at least make sure you're at a good stopping place. Be sure to give your student positive feedback about his or her effort or any specific praise from the day. And if time allows, you can preview the pacing guide for what you'll be working on in the next tutoring session. Now that we know how to access materials to plan a tutoring session, Let's review a few simple practices to keep in mind when working with early literacy students. Here are a few final reminders for good planning and practice. Students should do most of the talking and reading in your session. Read the entire section of the teacher guide before conducting your tutoring session. And lead students in sounding out words as opposed to telling them how to say the word. We'd love to hear from you. What questions do you still have about the curriculum materials for 3rd through 5th grade literacy? Please share any questions by reaching out to us at tutoring@mnps.org so that we can ensure you have all the support you need to be a successful tutor from day one. Each school has a tutor lead who is designated to assist tutors and students with making sure our program runs smoothly. The tutor lead should be your first line of contact in the event of an emergency or if you have any school-specific questions. If you have questions about policy, tutoring practices, or anything beyond the school level, you can reach out to tutoring@mnps.org. If you have questions about the Go Schoolbox platform, please also direct those to tutoring@mnps.org. Thank you for serving as an Accelerating Scholars tutor. Your contribution to student learning is invaluable. And thank you for taking the time to complete this module. You may now move on to Module 3.